Eventually, there it goes. Okay, so now it's live, but I can cut the audio and edit it however I need to.
Okay, cool.
So. Bless you. Whoever just sneezed.
You heard that?
Yeah.
They're upstairs.
That was a really loud sneeze.
Oh my gosh.
That'll be all right. Squeaky chair.
Yes.
All right, let's get this thing going here.
Okay.
All right, everybody, welcome into the very first episode of the Fantasy Football Fix podcast. My name is Ian Smith. Some of you may recognize me, maybe three of you, from another podcast I do, the Euro Snob podcast. We're not going to talk about that tonight, but I'm joined here by my good friend, Cody Collado. Cody, how's it going?
Doing very well, Ian. How about yourself today?
Can't complain. Got a break from the dad life here. Step upstairs, talk a little fantasy football, and take the 45 minutes out of here that can take to get a little bit of a break.
Yeah, definitely. Don't lie. You like the dad life.
Dad life. It's been pretty good, man. It's hard to explain exactly what it's like, but someday you'll know. Someday.
Yeah, someday.
And yeah, arguable about when that'll happen, but
we won't go there.
Soon enough, I'm sure. So just kind of give everybody a little introduction to what we're going to be doing here. This is obviously just a fantasy football podcast. We're going to talk a little bit tonight specifically about running backs, top offenses, top defenses as far as fantasy is concerned. But, in general, we're just going to kind of, talk fantasy football, man. That's what everybody kind of likes to do. The football season's coming up. Everybody's getting excited for that. So we figured now's about time to jump in and start going with it. So I guess we'll just jump right in. Like I said, we're going to go and run through some running back rankings for you. Now, there's a lot of podcasts out there that are going to go super heavy on stats. I know coming from me, it's not going to be super stats heavy. So for those of you that aren't a huge fan of the statistical part of it, I know it's a big part of fantasy football. It's not going to be what this one's all about. It's just going to be talking football. So I'm going to dive right in. We're going to start top of the running back rankings. Let's go with your number one spot, Cody. Who do you got there?
That does depend. For half points, I have Todd Gurley, one. For half point PPR. If we're going full point PPR, I have Le'Veon Bell, my first pick. But for half point, we're going to go Todd Gurley.
That's because you're biased as a Steelers fan. I'm going to throw that out right now just so everybody does know where our allegiances lie. I am a Bills fan. Both of us are, coming to you from Buffalo. I am a Bills fan, diehard through and through. And somehow Cody's a Steelers fan, so send your hate mail his way.
I will take the hate mail.
All right. And another thing, too, I think as far as scoring-wise, we're generally going to talk half point. It's just easier to, kind of middle of the road as far as it goes for guys that play PPR or not PPR. So just so everybody knows that. Right off the bat, yeah, my number one, Todd Gurley, assuming half point PPR. I think there's a little bit of risk there just because of the year he had, not this past year, but the season before that. But I think a lot of that can be attributed to the offensive coordinators and coaches they had running that. So, I mean, do you have any real concerns about Gurley reverting back to his form from 2 years ago?
No, I think he'll keep up the same pace that he has been. I don't really see – he might have a little bit of a slump there because he came off a really high end there during the playoffs. But I don't see any risk there. The only risk I see is Jared Goff. He isn't the greatest quarterback, so that could turn down his receptions a little bit, but that's the only risk I see.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I think that one of the big things about Gurley is just the workload, right? It's pretty. Oh, sorry about that. It's pretty guaranteed. I mean, even with the targets too, he's not going to pick up as many targets as somebody like Le'Veon Bell, for example. But he was heavily relied on. I mean, he had almost 800 yards receiving last season, so he's definitely a big time target in that offense. My only real concern is the touchdowns. he scored a lot of touchdowns last year. He had 13 rushing, and I believe it was six passing and 6 receiving touchdowns. I figure he's probably going to come in similar to that 13 number on the ground. I worry that he's going to lose a couple in the air. But other than that, I mean, he's pretty. I don't want to spend too much time on Gurley, but he's
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah, definitely. And then he just signed that 4-year deal today, actually.
Yeah, right. What, 15 million a year? Lev Bell sitting there, waiting for his paycheck now. Unfortunately, he's got to wait another year. So that, right to Lev Bell. That's my number 2 guy. Your number 2 guy. Where are, you're a Steelers fan. What's not to like about him? Everybody knows what he brings, but
the only concern is for Lev Bell now is the fact that he was franchise tagged, and the Steelers decided not to have a long contract signed for him. That's the only concern. On the other side of that, it could bring is that they're going to use him as much as they possibly can now, knowing that if he more than likely is not going to be Steeler at the end of this year, they'll use him as much as they can, get the use out of him because they have no reason to savor him for coming up years.
Now, I mean, I suppose on that point too, you could argue that his injury risk goes up too, no?
Yeah, definitely. He has that injury in the past. He could definitely have a higher risk for that. But other than that, he's going to be the number 2 overall running back. The next running back I have on my list is a little bit of a gap, not a huge gap, but you go 1 Gurley, 2 Bell. So
yeah, I think for me with Bell, the only concern I have really, I mean, and really, I don't know if you want to call it a concern. I think you are right though. He could very easily, and probably, I would almost say you're right that he would be that will finish as the highest scoring running back this season in fantasy. But I know I'm saying that, and then I rank him second, right? The reason that he's behind Gurley for me is it's consistency in the beginning of the season. I'm a little bit worried that he's going to hold out all the way through camp again, come in right at the end of camp, and get off to a slow start. But I mean, okay. I mean, we're really splitting hairs at this point in time. You can't go wrong with either one. It's kind of a preference, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can send your hate mail to me being a Steelers fan, but I'm still gonna. I mean, Gurley is still gonna be the better player overall, I think, and he would still be number 1. So, yeah, Gurley's still 1, Bell would be 2.
Okay, number 3, I have David Johnson.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there, Ian. David Johnson is the next pick there. Even though he just came off the injury, there's still the gap between even 1, 2 to 3 and 4 is a big gap between the difference of running backs.
Yeah, I mean the thing about David Johnson, he's the complete back there. I mean, as much as Le'Veon Bell is that way, I mean, you obviously have to throw out last year's stats for David Johnson because of that injury. For me, there's no concern of injury concern coming into this year. It wasn't a knee, it wasn't an ankle. It's a wrist.
Yeah, and it wasn't like he has had wrist problems in the past. It was a freak accident that kind of just happened. So it's not like he was constantly out for a wrist injury.
Right. Exactly, and that's why there's no concern there for me. The thing I really like about him, though, and one of the things you do have to kind of worry about, as far as in my opinion, when you do have a new offense coming in, you've new coaches, you've got new quarterbacks. Are they going to still use, those go-to players in the same way? And I think in David Johnson's case, if they don't, those coordinators and coaches should be fired right off the bat because he's easily the best player on their team. If you look at his stats from 2 years ago, 1,200 yards rushing, almost 900 yards receiving. He could legitimately go for 2,500 total yards this year. I mean, he could run for 1,300 and 1,400 and catch and go for 1,100 receiving. Then Heth checks out, but he's that kind of a dual threat.
Oh yeah, dual threat, 100%. The only concern is that, like you said there, Ian, was that he does have a rookie quarterback starting on his team, and
I'm gonna stop you right there. You think it's gonna be Rosen?
I think so. I think maybe in the middle of the season, maybe not at the start of the season, but I think he'll they'll turn to him once the season goes, especially if they get off to a shaky start. I'm not saying that if he is going to play this season, but if they're able to stop the quarterback, the main focus is then David Johnson.
And I think that's kind of what you said there about getting off to a shaky start in the quarterback thing. That's kind of that would be my one concern, is that team, they had a pretty good defense last year. I think they're going to struggle. Their offense is not going to be very good. They're not going to be a great team this year. So that comes down, it's kind of a similar situation to we've seen with LaShawn McCoy in Buffalo over the last couple of years. Right? You know that he's going to be the main weapon on that offense.
Well, because Buffalo has no other weapons, so
it was bad before, and it's getting even worse. But that would be my one concern with David Johnson. There is that the opposition's going to key on him. You know what I mean? Kind of try and take him out. It's just a matter of if they can.
Exactly.
So, on to number 4. Who do you got?
Number 4, I have Alvin Kamara.
Okay. See, now this is 4 picks in. We've got ourselves a nice little difference here. For me, I have Alvin Kamara down at number 9. Now, these rankings here, we are going half-point PPR. Remember, if you are playing PPR, that's going to bump a player like Kamara up a little bit. But let me hear what you have as far as why Alvin Kamara is going to be your number 4 here, the number 4 running back.
Because he's a monster. He can run, he can catch. Once he gets it open, he's very hard to tackle. He makes people miss. I actually have him at 4 for both PPR and half-point PPR. I just think that on that team, Drew Brees is a little older, I still think you have to stop Drew Brees first before you stop the run game. And that makes Kamara a little bit more dangerous than being, as you have him, a 9. And I can see him being a 9. But personally, I just think he should be higher up as a 4 just because the team he's surrounded on and the quarterback he has put him at a higher value, I think.
I can understand that. I mean, my concern with him and why I have him down at 9, and sure, there's certainly room to move that around a little bit, but I don't know that he's going to get the carries that he needs to maintain the baseline as far as for what he's going to need to be up there. I mean, he had 120 carries last year. I know it's going to be a little bit different with Mark Ingram suspended for, what is he out, 4 games?
Yes, 4 games.
So his carry count is going to go up, but I don't see New Orleans giving him 30 touches a game in the beginning of the season. All that being said, he did finish 3rd in, I believe it was PPR rankings last year. So
yeah,
right, standard he finished 4th, according to on CBS. So I'm saying all this stuff and I'm ranking him 9th, and then I kind of looking at what he did last year. It's he certainly could do that again. Yeah, I mean, there's really not a ton of concerns. He had 100 targets last year, 80 catches. So PPR, he's an absolute monster. So the big question, it's what is he going to do on the ground? Is he going to get the extra carries? And if he does get those extra carries, I absolutely see him coming in at number 4, potentially.
Well, Ian, who do you have at 4 then?
Gotta go Zeke.
Okay, yeah, I have him right below Kamara at 5. What puts you Zeke at 4?
He's the only player that they have on that offense. They do have, in Dallas, their best receiver is Allen Hurns. Maybe their receiver Michael Gallup, their rookie guy. I mean, right. There's no weapons there.
Yeah.
He's the only thing their offense has to revolve around. The nice thing about that in Dallas, though, is Dallas still has one of the better offensive lines in the entire league. So even if everybody keys on him, and we've seen it in the past where he was their offense and he still puts up monster numbers, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, definitely. I'll agree with you on that. Zeke is going to be the only player on that team to pretty much do anything. I mean, Dak Prescott, give him all the credit for being a great quarterback, but he's only so much he can do, and they really have no one to throw to. Zeke is going to be their whole offense. But then that just puts me up having Kamara at 4 just because I like their offense better. I think he'll get more touchdowns and he'll get more receptions. I think that just puts him a step above Ezekiel Abbott because I have Zeke at 5, so he's right there next to Kamara. I just think Kamara is just has a little bit of an edge because of the offense.
I mean, I can certainly understand that, and that's kind of and the nice thing too about the Saints is that they have gone run heavy. Not run heavy, but they have shifted in the last year or two with Drew Brees. They've shifted away from throwing the ball 45, 50 times a game. So Kamara is going to be a huge impact. And, it is going to come down to touchdowns between the two of them. Is Zeke going to pick up 10 to 12 rushing touchdowns and 1 to 2 receiving touchdowns? If he does that, yeah. I mean, if Kamara if Kamara puts up those kind of touchdown numbers, then he's absolutely going to finish above Zeke. I don't know that. I don't know that he will because there's other weapons that the Saints have, especially when they get down to the red zone with a guy like Michael Thomas. But again, any of these guys, I guess ultimately it's just I think Zeke's a little safer. I think he's a little bit more guaranteed. He's not quite as I see Kamara as a little bit more boom bust with not much bust potential. So
big boom, little bust.
Yeah, pretty much. The next guy here, and I think this might be interesting to you. I haven't seen your rankings yet, but I think the number 5 guy this season is going to be Saquon Barkley.
Okay, yeah, I don't have Saquon up at 5 there. Like I said, I have Zeke's at 5 for me. And I have Saquon at actually at 7. But like we've been pretty much saying, the first couple picks here, it's fine hairs you're picking from these running back players. Any of them on your team, they're going to get you the points and get you touchdowns. It's just basically, which ones would fit better in your standard. But yeah, for me, I have Zeke at 5. So what's your views on Barkley?
Well, the thing about Barkley, it kind of presents itself an interesting situation here. I mean, when you look at the Giants' offense last year, we talk about not having anybody around on your offense. I mean, the Giants had absolutely nobody. Most of that was due to injury. Obviously, Odell Beckham was down. Sterling Shepard was out for a little while. They had no running back on the roster that actually knew how to run the ball. So getting everybody back healthy, bringing in a player with the talent of Saquon Barkley, I think that, and one of the things we're going to get to is our top 3 offenses. I think the Giants are going to have a year offensively that it's going to make last season. It's going to just blow that out of the water. I think with the amount of weapons that they have, I don't see it a way that, other than their offensive line maybe not quite getting up to where it needs to be, I don't see a way where that offense isn't one of the best in the league. And if that's the case, they're going to score touchdowns. They're going to rely heavily on Saquon Barkley. They took him number 2 in the draft. I think that goes a long way to tell you how important they see him as far as what they're going to try and do on offense and how they're going to try and fit him into their offense. So I think his usage is going to be off the charts. But that being said, it is risky because we've never seen him do it in the league.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge risk there. But you're saying that they're going to be one of the top offenses in the league. That's a pretty big gap. I think they were in the high 20s last season. I think 21 was their offensive rank.
Somewhere in the 20s.
I mean, if they can do it, I mean, that'd be a big turnaround for them. I definitely could, see them doing that with the weapons they have now. But then again, it's up to that team. I don't remember if I'm correctly. How was their line? Was their line good?
Last year it was terrible. I don't have the. I'm not somebody who really loves the Pro Football Focus grades. They are certainly not looked favorably on by Pro Football Focus. They were one of the worst offensive lines in the league last year. They have made some improvements. Nate Solder came in from New England, I believe. So they've done some things to kind of bolster their offensive line. It should be better. The nice thing though is having Odell Beckham back and the emergence of Evan Ingram last year is going to give defenses a little bit more to think about. So it's going to be, I think that's going to help out the offensive line play as well, that the defense can't just kind of key on one thing and go after it that way.
Yeah, they definitely need to take some pressure off Eli there. Because he can be a good quarterback when he isn't pressured as much, that's for sure. But I have Barkley at 7. He's not too far off from where Ian has him at 5. But we'll see how he does. Will be his rookie year. For 6, I don't know about you, Ian. I have Melvin Gordon at 6 for me.
Yep, I'm with you there. And I'll be honest, as far as Melvin Gordon goes, I've never been a Melvin Gordon fan. I've always been one of those people that said it just was never completely sold on him as a player. His rushing average, he's compared to the other top running backs, it's on the low side. He's under 4 yards a carry, but he gets a ton of work and he scores a ton of touchdowns.
Yeah. His yards per carry are a little bit low. I'm looking at it. He had a high 83 targets last year for receiving, and that comes again from Philip Rivers, having a veteran quarterback. And Philip Rivers, he's always been a good quarterback. He just has never gotten over that cusp. And I think Chargers are overall, their team is favorable to go far deep in the playoffs this year. I think they have a good defense. They actually have a really good defense. And they have a great team around him. But we're not talking about the whole team in general. We're talking about Melvin Gordon. But so that's why I have him at 6 for me.
The thing about the team, though, you talked about that earlier with Kamara as being a big factor in where you rank your guys. For Melvin Gordon, I think that's entirely why he's ranked where he is. It's the situation and it's the opportunity. I'm not saying he's not a talented running back. I don't think he's on the same level as Gurley, Bell, Johnson, Zeke. I don't think he's on the same level as these other guys that he's up with, being ranked with right now, talent-wise. But opportunity and production, you just can't argue with it.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree there. But if the Bills had Melvin Gordon,
I wouldn't be ranking him number. I wouldn't be ranking him at 6.
Yeah.
It'd be a little further down the line, but he'd still be a top 12 guy for me.
Yeah. My point is that, he has, like you said, maybe he doesn't have the talent as the first couple there, but I think he has the talent to be, even in top 5 running backs. I think that it's not just about the situation he's in, the team he's on. For me, it does add a factor, but I think overall he's a smart running back. He runs well and he runs strong. It just puts him a little bit higher for me than all the other ones. But then saying again, once we get down lower into the rankings, there's a huge gap difference between them. So.
What's going on here? Sorry about that. Pop-ups. All right. Next up on my list, and this is for me the first running back on this list where I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not sure what you're going to get out of him. That's Kareem Hunt. Last year, started off the season. I'm looking at his fantasy points right now. He was absolutely incredible the first 3 weeks. Tailed off a little bit, settled into kind of 10 to 12 points for a couple of weeks, and then he was bad. He's downright bad for the next 5 weeks, and then playoff time showed up again. So I don't know. He makes me nervous. You know what I mean? He's kind of one of those players where the upside is huge, but he was also their only option last year. Spencer Ware going out right at the beginning, before the season, they didn't have any other option for a player to give the ball to out of the backfield. Now Spencer Ware's coming back. It still remains to be seen how much work he takes from Kareem Hunt. But, I have him number 7, but I'm nervous about it.
I can see why you're nervous there. I actually have Kareem Hunt at 10. Kareem Hunt, yeah, I understand your concern there. He had an up and down season last year. I should know. I had him in 3 of my fantasy football leagues, and it was very interesting turnaround there. But yeah, he's high risk, high reward. He'll get you the points. He can run great. He's great in the passing game. Right behind Tyreek Hill on that team. He's the next one to be targeted for a pass, pretty much. He definitely. For me, I didn't mention this in the beginning here. I have my players ranked kind of like in a tier form. For me, he's like a tier 3 for running backs. Tier 1 the first couple, 3, tier 2 after, and tier 3. He definitely is something that if he's there, I'm going to grab him. I'm not going to pass on him. That's for sure. My only concern is that he had a lot of big receptions last year. As well as Tyreek Hill, but he had a lot of big receptions coming from Alex Smith, and he'll be getting passes from Patrick Mahomes this year, which I'm sure they'll integrate a great system for him, and then get him the ball out quickly. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
The Mahomes thing, it's another thing that scares me. They're bringing you gave the keys to the car to Mahomes. They brought in Sammy Watkins, signed him to a really big contract. I'm really curious to see what this offense is going to look like. There's a lot of mouths to feed, and you got a rookie quarterback. Second-year quarterback, but he's made 1 start.
Yeah.
And it was week 17. So the concern there is, what's the offense going to look like? How many touches are going to go around? Obviously, he's still the number 1 guy in the rush in the run game, but if Mahomes really struggles, that's going to make it more difficult on Hunt, because teams are going to start focusing more on him. So just another little thing that kind of adds to the uncertainty with Kareem Hunt is all the weapons that offense is putting together now. And if Mahomes is good, if Mahomes doesn't even have to be great, he just has to be decent and just get the ball out to these guys. And they could all have big years.
Yeah, they all definitely could. It's definitely going to be an offense to watch this year, because we know what Sammy Watkins can do when he gets open. He can catch any ball. We see how fast Tyreek Hill can be, and as we've seen, we know what Hunt can do. It's going to be an interesting offense to watch. That's for sure.
All right, next up for me at number 8, this is another kind of risky guy for me, Dalvin Cook.
I have at 8. I have Leonard Fournette. I'm kind of glad we didn't look at each other's rankings so far, because we definitely have some differences. But that's good. That makes the conversation interesting, and lets us know everything. But I have Cook right behind Fournette at 9. What puts you having Cook at 8?
Because I had him for a little bit last year, and he was awesome.
Well, I had him too. I had him too.
Injuries absolutely killed me last year. And he was one of those guys. When he broke onto the scene, he's good, man. He's the opportunity is there, the ability is there. And really, the concern is new quarterback. How is that going to affect what we get out of him? That's. I'm just trying to pull up. He was first couple of games, and he was all over the place. His usage was huge, so you obviously have to hope that in him coming back, he's healthy, and I think by the start of camp he will be. The other interesting thing there is he going to take on a bigger role in the passing game? I'm ranking him where I am. assuming that he will.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. Coming off the injury does scare me a little bit because he'll have a full season of not playing. Always makes things a little tricky. I had, like I said, I had him last year too. I want him to come back and do well because I definitely look forward to drafting him because, like you said, his games that he played last year were incredible. He did great. The only thing is those games that he wasn't, he was doing great, and Latavius Murray was injured for those games. He didn't have as much of a workload. As far as I know, Latavius Murray is still fully healthy now. And he'll be the backup. So, I mean, that could take away some carries from Dalvin Cook because, Murray had a pretty good season last year behind with him and McKinnon. The run game was pretty solid last year. So I could see a couple carries taken away is why maybe I don't have him as high as you at 8 there, have him at 9. But, just nitpicking there is small things.
The other thing, too, is kind of what brought my question on about the passing game. Is McKinnon leaving? Latavius Murray is not going to catch very many balls. So if they are going to target the running back, that's going to be Dalvin Cook's job. So I do think he gets targeted. He had 11 receptions in his 4 games that he played last year. I think he gets more than that per game. He'll bring in probably 3 to 4 catches a game. So that's only going to help him. It's going to kind of bump him up from where he was last year. And obviously, this is assuming that he's in good health where we have him ranked.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there.
Your guy at 8?
For me, I had Leonard Fournette
right.
at 8. That comes with a little bit of sourness because since I am a Steelers fan and that playoff game last year was a little rough.
It's not just a playoff game. They smoked in the regular season, too.
Yeah, regular season, too. But the playoff game was a little bit more rough. But, yeah, I think Fournette, he does come with some injury risk there, which does, make it a little bit harder drafting him. But I just think, that team is on the upside. They still have Bortles as their quarterback, so it's, not the greatest quarterback, but they're moving
up.
You're
giving him way too much credit by saying he's not the greatest quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
He's horrible.
True, but it could be worse.
Yeah, I guess so. I shouldn't talk too much. My quarterback. I don't know who my quarterback is this year.
Yeah, we don't know who your running back is anymore now.
It's going to be shady.
Sorry,
can you go ahead?
I just said Fournette because he was good last year. He had a lot of carries, a lot of yards. He was a workhorse. He carried pretty much every down. I think the only back behind him is T.J. Yeldon.
Because Chris Ivory's in Buffalo now.
Yeah, and he had his chances there and when he was in Jacksonville. While he was starting in Jacksonville, and he didn't really pan through, and it was mainly because maybe the offense wasn't as good. I have Fournette at 8.
Fournette, the things that I like: workload, opportunity, talent. Things that scare me: injuries. He had a history of injuries in college. He had a history of injuries in the offseason and in last season. So that's where my concern comes down there. Also, the fact that I think Jacksonville is going to be, they're going to be a really, really bad offense. I don't think their team's going to be all that great. I think their defense is going to regress a little bit. They were one of the best defenses we've seen in a really long time last year. And I have a hard time believing that they're going to maintain that. So I think the fact that Jacksonville's offense, I think, is not going to be as good as it was last year, that's going to hurt him. It's going to cut down on his touchdowns. But the opportunity, the talent, that's all there for sure. Kind of trying to pick up the pace here. We'll go run off a few more. So right now, it brings us to, I think, our number 10 ranking. Maybe number 9. I had Alvin Kamara at number 9. I don't know if I skipped over your 9 there.
Yeah, at 9, I had Dalvin Cook. So okay. I think we both
already talked about them.
Yep.
So my next 3, I'm just going to list off 10, 11, and 12. Christian McCaffrey. Now, I'll get into that in just a second. Leonard Fournette and Devontae Freeman. So the interesting one in that group, I think, and I'm sure you would agree there, is Christian McCaffrey. He was an absolute monster, especially in PPR last year. That being said, there certainly is, the guy had 113 targets, 80 catches. On the ground, he wasn't nearly what you'd want him to be. Reports are out there that he has bulked up to take on a bigger load rushing, and I think he's going to get the ball on the ground more this year. The question is he going to be more efficient? He was not very efficient last year, but he only scored 2 rushing touchdowns, and I think that number has to come up. The other concern that I have a little bit there is with Greg Olsen back in the fold, is he going to lose targets? I think he's a big enough part of their offense that he's going to maintain the same level of targets and catches. I mean, he was an 80-catch guy last year. I absolutely love him in this spot, and I think he's got the potential to kind of have an Alvin Kamara-esque type of season this year.
Yeah, I have McCaffrey at 12 last year. I was a little bit more higher on him last year. I thought, he did have a great season last year. I have him at 12, 10, 11, 12. I have Kareem Hunt at 10, Jerick McKinnon at 11, and I have Christian McCaffrey at 12. For McCaffrey, I'll agree with you. The receptions are going to be taken away with Olsen. I think it's going to be a big gash in his receptions this year. But my main concern is actually going to be C.J. Anderson. Now that he's on the team, I think he's going to have a lot more carries. Even McCaffrey only had 2 rushing touchdowns last season, like you said. I think C.J. Anderson is going to, hinder that a little bit more this year. He is taken over from Jonathan Stewart after he was released. And C.J. Anderson is a good running back. He's a workhorse. He's powerful. He'll gash up the middle. And then we also have to factor in Cam Newton. He'll always, in that 5-yard line, there's always that chance of him running in those touchdowns. So I have him at 12. He's going to get those receptions anyways because he's really quick. And like you said, he's a monster. He's a beast. He's super strong. So, he'll get the receptions, but I have him at 12.
Okay. I mean, the thing, I guess my point there is with about 120 carries last year, he's not going to have any less than that. Even with C.J. Anderson coming in, he's just not going to have less carries than that. I think it goes up, which only helps. And who do you have to finish out your top 12 there?
I think the only difference I have Jerick McKinnon at 11. Okay. You had Freeman somewhere in there.
That's going to be that's somebody that I haven't bought into the hype yet. Clearly you have, and I think you're crazy for it. It's one of these situations where he's had opportunities in the past. I mean, he couldn't beat out Latavius Murray in back when they were in Oakland. He had opportunities, and now, I mean, I think everybody is kind of assuming that because he's going to play in a Kyle Shanahan system, that he's going to become what Devontae Freeman was a couple of years ago. Yeah, he's freakishly athletic. He can catch the ball. He's got talent. I'm just not convinced. Quite frankly, I'm not convinced by that San Francisco offense at this point in time. I'm not convinced that McKinnon can carry the load as a lead rusher. I'm not convinced that the wide receivers in San Francisco are good enough to really take the focus of the defense off of McKinnon.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you there. I'm not really 100% on the San Francisco offense either. But the way I look at it, why I have him in 11 is, like you said there, he was on the Vikings team that was sharing carries after Dalvin Cook went out with Murray and McKinnon. And they both had a pretty good season last year. Anybody would want them on their fantasy team. They were scoring left and right. They were getting receptions and yards. The reason why I have him at 11 is that there's no one else in that backfield. He's going to get the ball. And maybe if the wide receivers aren't that good, we're still kind of seeing what's, Jimmy Garoppolo can do. He came off, a pretty good end of the season last year. But there's no one else in that backfield for the San Francisco 49ers that can do what he does. And I think he'll get the touches and the receptions, and he'll be up there.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that certainly remains to be seen. I mean, it kind of comes back to my concern with a guy like Saquon Barkley. I think they're on completely different levels as far as talent. So that's why I like Barkley that much better. And McKinnon, for me, I have him at 16. But picking up and see, we'll run through the next three on my list. LeSean McCoy. I'm not sure how I feel about this one. Rashad Penny and Howard from Chicago. Shady, obviously, assuming that he's not suspended. Quite frankly, I would be comfortable assuming that he's not going to miss any time. The way things are going, it seems like it was just a big, not miscommunication, but overreaction. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that part of it too much because I don't know all the details, obviously, but I'd be pretty confident that Shady's going to be in there. The one that, and I think you heard it in my voice when I said it, Rashad Penny, obviously that's assuming he's the starter. Right now, Chris Carson, just a couple of days ago, there are reports that Chris Carson is coming into camp as Seattle's number one running back. I think that's just to drive home a point that Penny needs to work on his pass coverage and his pass blocking. By the time the season starts, he will be their number one back. They are shifting to a run-heavy offense. They have a new offensive coordinator that is very, very run-heavy. And quite frankly, their only target for Russell Wilson to throw to is Doug Baldwin. I think the opportunity is going to be huge. Maybe I'm a little bit skewed by the rookie running back success last year, but I kind of like Rashad Penny in there. I don't know. What are your next three there?
For 13, I have Devonta Freeman at 13. 14, I have LeSean McCoy, and then 15, I actually have Joe Mixon at 15.
Okay.
I have Freeman at 13. It's Devonta Freeman. He still has Coleman there that is gonna always take away carries, but I think last year was the first time he dropped out of actually being a running back one. At the end of the year, he's still on a good offense, a good team around him. I have him at 13. McCoy, I'm right there with you with him. I'll be 100% honest with you. I'll probably avoid him as much as I can for drafting him this year. But then again, if he's there, he's the best one on there, I may have to take him. But we won't get into much of McCoy. And 15, I have Joe Mixon. I'm not a huge fan of Cincinnati Bengals for obvious reasons, but Joe Mixon.
Your bias is showing again.
Yeah, exactly. I think Joe Mixon, he still has Giovanni Bernard behind him. That will definitely limit his potential there. But I think he still has a lot to prove. He showed some moments last year, and I think that with the Bengals offense, they can give him the ball, and there's not much besides AJ Green. There's not much more to the offense.
I think on Mixon there, I've got him one spot further down at 17, one or two spots. But I think Mixon kind of, for me, I've got McKinnon right in that area too. That kind of shows up as kind of like a tier break for me. You talked about that earlier when I think you were talking about Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of guys. I mean, Alex Collins, I don't trust him. I don't trust Baltimore. Darius Geis is a rookie. What's he going to do? Jay Derrick Henry, Marlon Mack, Deion Lewis, Sony Michel. Like, there's a whole bunch of guys after that point where I think there's a lot more uncertainty. I mean, I know you could throw probably a couple of those guys up into this group that we're talking about. Probably Alex Collins deserves to be talked about in this group. That's right for me at number 18. So, to be honest, that's where there's a pretty big tier break in my opinion. As far as guys who what to expect, what their role is going to be. Joe Mixon, he's only going to get an increased role with Jeremy Hill not getting the ball. Somehow he was still getting the ball. I don't know how. And quite frankly, their offense is better than they played last year. They have weapons. They should rebound this year. They've made some improvements on their offensive line. Cordy Glenn, if he can stay healthy at left tackle, is going to be absolutely huge for that team. Again, that's coming from Buffalo. I know that he's got a long injury history, and that could be a big concern for them. But I think that the one guy that I had in that group that you didn't is Rashad Penny. But I don't know how you feel. Is that at that point? Do you really see a tier break there as well?
Yeah, Joe Mixon is on the very bottom of my tier 3. right starting at my tier 4, I actually have Jordan Howard and then Rashad Penny and then Alex Collins. Jordan Howard's right on the cusp for me at that tier 3, tier 4. Mainly because Tariq Cohen is there. He's going to take away carries. And the Bears' offense is kind of iffy. We don't know where that's going to go this year. But he's right at that cusp there. And then Rashad Penny, he makes that tier 4, and so is Alex Collins. And actually, I had the next players you actually Shoni Michel tier 4 range. So like you said, they're players that we don't know what they're going to do. They're kind of up in the air for them, but they're definitely there to look at when your draft comes around. On those names, I think the one I'm targeting the most is probably Sony Michel. I think he has the best upside, mainly because we know how the Patriots like to use their running backs in every aspect of the game.
That's the thing about Sony Michel. Sorry to butt in there, but that's the thing that scares me off of him. I don't think I will have him on a single team of mine this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it. It's just the way and that's not a bias at all, because I think he's incredibly talented. And the Pats took him with a first-round pick. So my argument for Rashad Penny and what they spent on him, and Saquon Barkley too, that they spent such high draft capital on him, that argument suggests that they're going to use him heavily. But it's the Patriots. You never know what to expect with their running backs. They used Mike Gillislee like crazy the first couple of weeks last year, and then they sat him on the bench the rest of the year.
Yeah. The same thing can be said, going right back, using the same argument against you. They could not use him for the first 4 games and use him the rest of the season, and we would have no idea. So
exactly, and I think just quite frankly, I think he's getting. I don't have ADP up in front of me, but where he's getting drafted is just going to be too. I'm never going to have him because I'm not going to feel comfortable picking him. At the point that I feel comfortable picking him, he's not going to be on the board anymore for me.
I have ADP of him going in round 5 there. Round 5 is where I have him going for ADP.
For me, that's still I think it's a little bit high. I mean,
yeah.
It comes down to what your strategy is on drafting, and I think it's something that we'll kind of probably get into on our next episode here. It's just some draft strategies. There comes a point in time where are you pick high floor? Do you pick boom bust? Do you go for the upside? So there's a lot of players, like if we talked about in this next big long group of players that we're not going to get into today, that's what they are. They are big boom bust, and it's a matter of how what your draft strategy is. I think it's a good way to put it. I think that kind of does a good job, I think, for rounding out, unless you wanted to add another guy or two onto the end of that list there.
No, I think 20 is a good place to stop. The only other person I have left on my list is Darius Geis. But I think 20 is a great place to stop. Looking down the next rankings, they get kind of scary. It definitely gets a little scary going down there, and those players are something that you have to look a little deeper into what their offense is going to be like. But I think we hit the major ones.
All right, so just real quick, we want to kind of run through this. We've already touched on this a little bit as we've gone. Just kind of, what the teams that we think are going to have the best offenses for fantasy. It's something that when I look at players, when I think how they're going to finish, how they're going to perform, a big factor is the overall offense. I think Kelvin Benjamin's a pretty talented wide receiver, but the Bills' offense is going to be garbage, so I'm not expecting a big year out of him. That's kind of how I look at it. I have 3 teams that I'm pretty confident are going to be up there as 3 of the top offenses in fantasy football. And I don't necessarily mean like number 1 scoring, but offenses for fantasy, so they can support a lot of good fantasy players. In that case, of my top 3, you're going to be happy about the first one, Pittsburgh Steelers. I like the New York Giants offense a ton, and the Los Angeles Chargers is those would be my top 3. Kansas City's a big wild card, could be there or they could not be. Where do you top 3 offenses this year?
If I'm not trying to be biased, but Steelers, If all pans out for Bell and they use him as much as they should, if that could be Steeler next year, and with Juju Smith-Schuster, being on the upside, and they got rid of Bryant, which does make things a little different. But I still think you have Brown there. You have to put them at the top offense when the top offenses
they could
have a lot of weapons.
They could potentially support the number one receiver and the number one running back in fantasy.
Yeah, which they have done before in the past, and they could do it again this year. Right behind that, I do have the LA Chargers, like I mentioned earlier in the show. I think their offense is just all around really good. They'll get a lot of receptions. Keenan Allen, he had a great season last year. Philip Rivers is always solid, and then you have Melvin Gordon there getting receptions and touches, so that'd be good. And then next, I'm not really sure on that third one. I haven't really thought about the last one yet. If I had to pick one, I would maybe say Giants as well too. It looks like they did improve their line a little bit there. If Eli Manning can stay up in the pocket, they definitely have a lot of weapons around them. I have one that, it's kind of my wild card. I think the Jaguars offense is going to be better than most people think. I think they have a lot of weapons. Their wide receivers are deep. They have a lot of good wide receivers. And Fournette, I still think Fournette is a beast and get a lot of carries.
I could not disagree with you more about Jacksonville. Jacksonville is one of my top 3 worst offenses in the league. And there's no bias here because my Buffalo Bills are in this category. Worst 3: Bills, Jets, Jaguars. Blake Bortles, yeah, he's okay for fantasy because he puts up some rushing yards, so it gives him a little bit of baseline. But Marquise Lee, Dante Moncrief, Keelan Cole, Dede Westbrook, yeah, they're deep, but I don't think any of them is really that good. Their offense is all it is Leonard Fournette. I think the fact that their defense isn't going to. They're not going to perform. They're not going to take the ball away quite like they did last year. They were taking the ball away at a crazy rate. Oh, man. I think they got lucky. I think they got set up in short fields, and they were able to capitalize on it, and the defense really played a big part. I think their offense is going to be really, really bad. And the only player that I would even consider having on my fantasy team off of their roster is Leonard Fournette. And quite frankly, I probably wouldn't have him because I think he goes a little bit higher than I would pick him.
Fair enough. Everyone has their opinions. Like I said, they're my wild card. They weren't in my top 3. It's just something I've been looking into a little bit more. That they definitely. The receivers aren't the greatest, but I think they all have an upside. We'll see how the year pans out. But like I said, they're just up there. My wild card is something to look at.
I think another thing too about Jacksonville, and I've seen it because, their coaching staff came from Buffalo with Doug Marrone and Nate Hackett. I think that Doug Marrone is not a very good coach, and I think that plays a big part as to why their offense isn't going to be very good because he will run the ball. If he didn't have to throw the ball, he wouldn't throw the ball, and he said it. If he could run the ball on every single down, he would. And in today's NFL, it's not going to cut it. But maybe there's a little bit of a bias showing there.
Just a little bit.
He's not a good coach. He's really not. So, who else? Go just with your bottom 3 offenses, teams that you just wouldn't want to touch any of their players, or maybe only one guy off the team.
Bills, and probably the Jets. And the only person that I would probably touch off their team is Robbie Anderson. Just because I think
I like Robbie Anderson.
He has a high upside. If it all pans out well for the team, he's their deep guy. He'll go deep for them all the time. My next 3 bottom, I'm just going to say the Browns because I'm not sure what they're going to do. this year. I just got notification that they did sign. I can't think of his name now. Well, they signed their rookie quarterback. Why I can't think of their name?
Oh, Baker.
Baker Mayfield. Yeah, they did just sign him actually to a contract there. I just saw notification. So, it's and they are starting Tyrod Taylor, and I personally I like Tyrod Taylor. I think he obviously is not the greatest quarterback, but he'll complete games. And Ian's sighing because he's being biased again.
No, I'm not being biased, but this crap about Tyrod Taylor being a good quarterback. You want? Because
I never said he was a good quarterback. I said he's a starting quarterback.
He is a starting quarterback. So is Blake Bortles, and so is potentially.
Well, I would rather have Blake Bortles on my team than Tyrod Taylor.
I wouldn't go quite that far, but the thing about Tyrod and the Browns, and I'm with you that they're going to be way worse than a lot of people are giving him credit for. People like to talk about Tyrod's interception ratio and how he has one of the best interception ratios in NFL history as far as avoiding throwing interceptions. Tyrod didn't ever throw the ball into a spot where it could get intercepted. I mean, he had 16 touchdowns last year or something like that. Like he's just not good. He's overrated. He's, they do have some weapons to get the ball to, but
did the Bills make the playoffs last year?
They did, but not because of him.
Oh, okay. Still made the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor, quarterback.
He's amazing.
Argument won. Defense. Sold. Done.
No. You didn't. No.
Anyway,
he was not good.
I know. I see your point. I think, I never said he's going to come back. He's a starting quarterback. And that's why the Browns are in one of my top 3 worst offenses probably this season. I don't think that high on them either.
He threw 14 touchdown passes last year. 2,800 yards and 14 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's not good. That's not good. But he only threw 4 picks, so he must be amazing.
Starting quarterback. I'll say it again, Ian. Starting quarterback.
John Kaiser had more passing yards. Josh McCown, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco all threw for more yards than he did last year. I think.
How many rushing yards did Tyrod Taylor have?
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
It does matter. Because some of those games you wouldn't have won if it wasn't for the rushing of him.
Oh, 427?
Yeah. And that was probably out of the only one that more than him was probably Cam Newton, maybe?
Probably. Let me just for sake of checking, since I have it right in front of me. Cam Newton, Russell Wilson had more than him.
Okay. And then Tyrod Taylor.
And Cam had 754 yards rushing last year. That's wild.
Yeah.
It's a monster.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much sums up the top 20 running backs and top 3 offenses and top 3 worst offenses.
Top 3. That's kind of a funny way to put it. I think so too. We can get into down the road kind of where we would go after the top 20. For me, that really comes down to personal preference is as far as if you go high upside or high floor, because those guys all there, and I think you agree because we said it earlier, there's no guys at that point in time that have a high floor and a high ceiling, which is why they're down outside of the running back 2 range, assuming a 12-team league. So that's something we can certainly get into in future episodes. I know we also want to get into wide receiver rankings, get a mock draft in here, talk some draft strategies, because right now it is peak draft season. And another thing that I'm sure you'll all be subject to is updates on our Dynasty League that we've started this year. It's going to be an interesting one. That's something that I've personally never done, so I'm really excited to see how that goes. Got the draft coming up for that sometime in the next couple of weeks if we can ever get it scheduled. And I'm pretty sure you're excited for that one too as well.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be my first time doing that draft. Pretty excited about it. Something different looking too. I've been kind of skimming some pages on some facts for that kind of draft, but it'll be interesting.
We'll certainly keep you updated, especially when my team wins the championship, as it probably will.
Well, I mean, I'll just buy the trophy and keep it myself because I'm going to win. So
Yeah, we'll see about that. Yeah, for this episode, that's going to do it, guys. I appreciate you checking in. You can check out the podcast. We will have a Twitter feed, a Twitter account for this. It's at Fantasy Fix Pod. That's where that's where you're going to be able to find all of our stuff. That's where we'll be talking a lot of fantasy throughout the week. I think you should expect to see one podcast episode a week, early in the week, maybe a Monday night, Tuesday night. So, or probably a Monday night. That way you can see it by Tuesday morning to know where to go on your waiver claims. But we'll iron that out in the next couple of weeks there by the time the season gets started. But definitely check out the Twitter account because that's where we can kind of stay active and take questions and just get involved. It's talking fantasy football, man. Football season's coming. Training camp starts this week.
It does. I'm very excited, Ian.
Football season, man. It's great.
It is football season.
I don't realize how much I miss it until training camp starts rolling around. So again, thank you all for coming in, checking it out tonight. Spread the word, let everybody know that we got something good going here, and hopefully we can keep this rolling. Talk to you soon.